Now it's streaming. So I asked Alison for the Mexican students, and Brother Elvis said that the director said that we have the holidays for Guatemala only. So we are going to be here waiting for you tomorrow. But if you have a special food that you prepare tomorrow in Mexico as the golden tacos, please bring it to class because I want to know what are the golden tacos.
I look at in the Google is no more holidays in Guatemala until Christmas.
Yes, we have Christmas and
That's
New,
it.
yeah, only the Christmas and the.
Yeah.
And
I told my wife in Guatemala people work. Here in Colombia it's like every month is like one or two festivals. It's insane.
We have a lot of holidays also, but not on these months. So thank you for being on time. We will continue watching the video of person test. We'll be finishing where is person test? Okay, we'll go for our next part, which is sentence builds. And we will continue. It's only maybe 10 minutes left from the video. And we will learn the other 3 parts of a person test. It will be pretty fast.
And I will link it up here at the top corner of this video. This test will also measure your sentence mastery, pronunciation, and fluency. So my tip for this part is to just improve your English, especially with your speaking and spontaneity. I'm afraid nobody can help you here but you yourself. It's going to be just you and your English fluency. Because if you have a high or at least enough level of fluency, you should be able to figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. So you will only be able to survive the 10 items of part D with your fluency. So again, this is just going to be between you, Versant, and your fluency. And now we have reached the hardest part of the test, and that is part E, story retelling. Ooh, how do I put this? I must say that this is the hardest part of the test.
Hay un truco para aprender inglés rápido y se llama sentence mining o minería de frases.
You will be hearing 3 short stories. Each story will be composed of 3 to 6 sentences or 30 to 90 words. It's basically a short story, but your task is to retell the story in your own words. You have 30 seconds to describe in your own words, and when you're retelling the story, you have to include the situation, the character, the actions, and ending. What I find really hard in this task is you have to do a lot of things at once. Not only is this about your comprehension, your pronunciation, and fluency, this is also about your short-term memory. Because in this part of the task, there are information that you need to remember accurately. For example, the character names. Character names should be accurate. You should never get them wrong. The places, the events. And another problem is during the test, the stories will only be repeated once, not twice, but once. So it makes remembering extremely hard. On top of that, you are extremely nervous during the test. Mix all these things together. It is normal to feel that you don't know what you're doing. So yeah, hands down, part E, I think, is the hardest part of the test. I think even harder than part F, because in part F, you don't have to memorize anything. You just have to give your point of view. But in this test, it's extremely hard. You have to hone your short-term memory for you to be able to retain the information that needs accuracy. Versus says that part E is as hard as part F, that they are both 5 over 5 in difficulty. But I disagree with that. I think that story retelling, this part is the hardest of them all. But is passing this impossible? No, passing this part of the test is absolutely possible. You just have to expect that you will make mistakes while you're retelling the story. But to increase your chance of passing this test, here are my tips. First, I want you to feel the story, to understand the big picture of the story. So while the story is being told, I want you to maybe close your eyes and just picture out what is going on in the story. You know, when you're reading or listening to a story and you have this mental picture in your head that you're seeing while you're listening or reading a story, I want you to embrace that process and just immerse yourself in the story. Try to remember as much as you can of what happened during the story. Just understand the big picture of it. And while you're picturing out the story, while you're immersing yourself in the story, I want you to also, at the same time, remember the information that require accuracy, like the name of the characters, especially the name of the characters. They are very important. The numbers, the dates, the places, but the most important are the characters in the story. You need to remember who the characters are while you are experiencing the story in your head. The problem is you're not allowed to take note. You're not allowed to bring a pen and paper during the test. So you really cannot have a pen and paper help you to at least retain some of the information that you need to remember. For example, in this short story that I included 4 days ago in my mock version test, the information that you need to remember here are Olivia, Jerry, Tom, kitchen, 911. These are the information that you need to remember accurately. It is important that you don't miss them when you're retelling the story. There are, however, words that you don't have to accurately retell. For example, for burglar, you can just say intruder. For horror movie, you can say horror film. For loud bang in the kitchen, you can just say noise in the kitchen. I think it's important that when you're taking part E, you have this mental filter of the information that you need to remember and the things that you don't have to remember that well. I think the best thing that I can do for you here is to make another mock version with parts E and F, or maybe D, E, or F. What do you think? The more you practice, the more you will be able to improve your chances at passing this test, especially these stages, which are the hardest. The parts A to D, they are not that much of a problem if you have a decent level of English. But parts E and F, especially the E, are the hardest. So if you want me to make more mock version for parts E and F, just comment down below so I can upload them as soon as possible and you can practice. And also, you don't have to memorize it word for word. You just have to decide automatically which information to remember and which information to let go. So as you can see in this example, there was no need to repeat each sentence word for word. Olivia was watching a horror movie when she heard a loud bang from her kitchen. Convinced that it was a burglar, she screamed for help. Jerry, her neighbor, heard her scream and rushed to her house to see what was wrong. When he arrived, Olivia was about to dial 911, but Jerry immediately stopped her, for the figure that emerged from the kitchen was not a burglar, but Jerry's missing cat Tom. Olivia was watching a horror movie. Suddenly, she heard a loud bang from her kitchen. She thought that it was a burglar, so she screamed for help. Her neighbor Jerry heard her and immediately went to her house to see what was going on. When Jerry arrived at Olivia's house, he saw Olivia was about to dial 911 and immediately stopped her because it turned out that the one causing the loud bang was Jerry's missing cat, Tom. It's different from part B, where you need to repeat the sentences verbatim. In this part, you have to use your own words. So it's important that you have to improve your short-term memory, which you will be able to do with constant practice and with this specific exercise. And second, that you improve your English. It goes without saying, this is a test for your English fluency. So you will be able to retell the story more automatically if you have enough words in your head to retell the story. And now we have reached the last part of the test, which is part F, or open questions. Like part E, according to Versant, the level of difficulty of part F is the same as part E. But I personally think that part E is still harder than part F, but oh well. For part F, you will be listening to spoken questions, 2 questions. The good thing about this is the questions are going to be repeated twice. So you will have time to think and construct your answer in your head while listening to the question. In this task, candidates listen to spoken questions that elicit an opinion and are asked to provide an answer with an explanation. Candidates have 40 seconds to respond to each question. By the way, there are no right or wrong answers to these questions. Questions are going to be asking for your opinion. So there is no such thing as right or wrong answer. You just have to express your opinion and support your opinion. That is the goal of this test. The questions relate to day-to-day issues or the candidate's preferences and choices. This task is used to collect longer, spontaneous speech samples. Again, you need to talk normally like you would in a conversation, like this. From your point of view, is it better to live in a tropical climate or a temperate climate? Please explain your answer. From your point of view, is it better to live in a tropical climate or a temperate climate? Please explain your answer. I think that it's way better to live in a tropical climate than in a temperate climate, and that's for 2 reasons. First, obviously, is the weather. I haven't personally experienced winter myself, but I don't think that it's something that I'm going to be thrilled with. Second, and the most important reason for me, is the fruit. I think that the fruits in a tropical climate are way tastier than the ones in a temperate climate. Durian and mango, for example, are fruits that do not grow in temperate climate, and I wouldn't want to miss them just to live in a temperate climate. So as you heard in that recording, I sounded like I was in a conversation talking to another person. And that's because this test is going to measure your spontaneous speech when speaking in English. So again, it's important to develop your spontaneity when speaking in English. And again, I'm going to link the video up here where I talk about how to speak in English more automatically. If you apply the principle in that video, you should be able to increase your chances at passing Versant. And according to Versant, candidates' responses to items in this section are not scored, but are available for review by authorized listeners. So it sounds like this part of the test, part F, is not going to be assessed by the Versant software, but by an actual human. Obviously, you want to make sure that you are answering the question as best as you can. Avoid dead air. Make sure that you are talking in the majority of the allotted 40 seconds of the test. For example, here's one of the sample answers to a Part F question. Notice that the answer that you're going to hear in this example will be using the PrEP framework. PrEP, by the way, stands for point, reason, explanation, or examples, and back to point. Do you agree that social media has a negative impact on people's lives? Why or why not? Do you agree that social media has a negative impact on people's lives? Why or why not? In my opinion, I definitely agree that social media has a negative impact on people's lives. And a lot of that has something to do with insecurities. We humans are created to compare. I know a lot of people are saying that we should stop comparing ourselves to other people. But the thing is, it's human nature. And when we browse social media and when we do it regularly, we see these picture perfect lives of other people. We know that they are touched up versions of themselves. We know that they are somewhat scripted, but we can't help but compare. Not saying that we should stop using social media, but it should be something that we should use in moderation. So, as you can see, when you're using the PrEP technique to answer the questions in Part F, you will not run out of things to say, so you will be able to avoid dead air until the 40 seconds. And second, you will be able to express your answer in a more structured way that the listener will be able to understand better and understand your perspective. Of course, you will still have to practice to be able to express your answer in this technique. But once you get used to it, you should be able to pass Part F. So again, if you want me to make more mock version recordings with a focus for Parts E and F, then comment down below so I will be able to make them as soon as possible. So you will be able to practice with the recordings and have a better chance of passing the version test. And the last tip that I forgot to mention in this video is if you get one item wrong and the time for you to answer that question or that item is up, make sure to forget about that question or item immediately and proceed to what's right in front of you, to what you're currently answering. Of course, you want to make sure to answer each question correctly, but if you cannot answer this question, try to forget about it immediately and just focus on what's in front of you, on the question or the item that's in front of you, and answer that as best as you can. This way, you're only going to mess up the items that you didn't know, but the other items that you do know are unaffected and you will be able to answer them correctly. Okay guys, that is all for today. If you need to practice Versant, I'm going to put the link.
All right, so that was the last part of the Versant test. And we have an exercise to practice the Versant test. As you can see, the teacher in the video was giving us some tips. For example, in the last part, which is open questions, remember that the machine will be recording your voice, and we don't want to have dead air. What is dead air? This is dead air. The silence between phrases. Dead air. Tiempo muerto, ¿no? O el tiempo sin hablar. We don't want to have that during an open question session. Also, building sentences is another important section of the Versant test. And you will have the following exercise. So we'll see.
At the top right corner of this video.
So we will have a Versant quickly test. And
el día de hoy, Open English tiene una oferta especial para
and
Teacher, your audio.
So I was saying that we are going to watch the video together, and then we will practice, okay? I will show you the different sections of the video, and this video will help us to practice sections for listening, repeat, reading, retelling the story, etc. So pay attention carefully.
Speaking tips. It is important to speak naturally during the test. Here are some tips. Speak at a normal speed like you would during a conversation. Speak like you are talking to a person on the phone. There's no need to speak too carefully or slowly. Speak at a normal volume, not too loud or too soft. Now, please say your name. In which city and country are you taking this test? Part A. Reading. Please read the sentences as you are instructed. Please read sentence 1.
So here we have the reading part. Very simple. Listen to the video. And for example, if it says, please read sentence number 1, try to do it carefully, but not too fast. Oliver is a professional cheesemaker. Okay. So after this part,
Now,
we will have
please read
the next section of repeat.
I prefer not to have kids when traveling.
I prefer not to have kids with traveling.
Put that down, please.
Put it down, please. This is listen and repeat.
What a horrible performance.
What a horrible performance.
Have you ever tried skydiving?
Have you ever tried skydiving?
His car is being totaled because of the damage.
His car has been totaled because of the damage. This is the section for listening.
It looks like it's going to rain tomorrow.
And then, after this section, we have part C, the short questions.
Part C. Questions. Now, please just give a simple answer to the questions. For example, a voice says,
Would you get water from a bottle or from a newspaper?
and you say, a bottle or from a bottle. Would you take a picture with a camera or with a radio?
Will you take a picture with a camera or with a radio? What do you think?
With the camera?
No, with the radio.
With the radio.
In English, it's with the radio. Just kidding. So the camera, right?
How many minutes are there in an hour?
How many minutes would be in an hour? Who knows?
70 minutes?
60.
60.
60 minutes.
Which one barks? A frog or a dog?
Which one barks? A frog or a dog? Who knows this one?
A dog.
Very good. Do you know what barks means? What to bark means? Everything is being destroyed. Do you know what bark means? When a dog barks?
Yes.
Whoop, 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 whoop. My dog is barking. Woo, 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 woo. Ladrar. Okay, so this is the next section. After the question section, we will have a sentence build.
Does the cat have?
Part D. Sentence builds. Now please rearrange the word groups into a sentence. For example, a voice says,
Was reading. My mother. Her favorite magazine.
and you say, my mother was reading her favorite magazine.
All right, as you can see, in the test, you will have many sentences, not in order, but you will need to put them in order and create a structure and also read it verbally. So the machine will evaluate your pronunciation, okay? If you need to write something, that would be possible in some cases, but most of the time, they will ask you to say the sentence aloudly. So let's see other examples.
Scene.
And you say, my mother was reading her favorite magazine.
Over. Here. Get.
Over, here, get. What do you think? Over, here, get.
Get over here.
That's right.
Over. Here. Get.
Get over here. Venga para acá. Get over here. Number 2.
One whole pizza. She ate.
Who knows this one? A whole pizza she ate. Who knows? So you need to listen to the words so you can create the structure.
She ate a hot pizza.
Excellent. One more.
For their dog. Made a house. They.
They what? Who knows?
They made a house for the dog.
I don't know. This letter. Who wrote?
Who knows this one?
I don't know who wrote this letter.
Easy, right? Easy peasy. Very good, Claudia. So we will be practicing until we get to this part.
Part E. Story retellings. You will hear 3 brief stories. Each story will be spoken once, followed by a beep. When you hear the beep, you will have 30 seconds to retell the story in English. Try to retell as much of the story as you can, including the situation, characters, actions, and ending. You will hear another beep at the end of the 30 seconds.
Joan is highly stressed at work. She asked her boss Nathan if she could take a vacation for 2 weeks. He refused. The next day, Joan handed Nathan her resignation letter and booked a one-way ticket to Malibu.
So when you listen to that beep, you will start retelling the story. You will have 30 seconds. Tin, 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 tin. Then number 2.
She screamed for help. Olivia was watching a horror movie when she heard a loud bang from her kitchen. Convinced that it was a burglar, she screamed for help. Jerry, her neighbor, heard her scream and rushed to her house to see what was wrong. When he arrived, Olivia was about to dial 911, but Jerry immediately stopped her, for the figure that emerged from the kitchen was not a burglar, but Jerry's missing cat, Tom.
All right. So we have the storytelling,
To his relief,
storytelling.
do you agree that social
Then open question.
followed by a beep. When you hear the beep, you will have 40 seconds to answer the question.
App Gallery es la plataforma de distribución de aplicaciones oficiales para dispositivos Huawei.
You will hear another beep at the end of the 40 seconds.
Do you agree that social media has a negative impact on people's lives? Why or why not?
Do you remember the activity of social media? That's why we make that kind of activities, to open our brains. Now you know how to answer. But the key here is that try not to stop talking, because if you stop, you will have dead air, and you probably will allow to have no more than 5 seconds in dead air. Otherwise, you will not be able to have the answer correct in the section.
Do you agree that social media has a negative impact on people's lives? Why or why not?
And that's the last section. Okay. Do you have any questions about the person test that you, especially in these examples that we have seen? This is the whole person test. So it's not hard. What happened is that we need to get familiar with. I was sharing my own experience with some of you. So my first person test, I didn't know anything about a person test. I didn't know anything. So I applied for my first call center and I was not hired. I was rejected because my English level was not accepted by the company. But I was very confident that I have at least an acceptable level, you know, to start working. And I needed to start working. So after 2 or 3 weeks, I attend again to the same call center, and then I was hired in a premium account. And this is because I already knew how a person test works. So that's why on this case, you have this chance to know how it works. And no worries, I promise you that while you keep doing your part and getting more English vocabulary knowledge, then you just need to know what is going to be in the person test, and you already know it. You will have a section for repeated, reading, etc., storytelling. And when you have a very good English, an acceptable level, you see, you are not like in a professional level, but you already learned the basics in Fundal program, for example, it will be pretty easy for you to answer a person test. So no worries, we have time during the whole week to keep working the person test, because believe me, if you are going to have something at your favor in the next level, is that you know how to handle a person test. Okay? Questions? Questions, or everything clear like the Coca-Cola? I feel the class is empty. We are only 14.
Yes.
That's good. So let's see. Okay, please accept the invitation for the breakout rooms. And we are going to practice the video for the person test. Okay. It only has 20 minutes. So you will have half an hour, 30 minutes to complete the person test. Okay. Remember, the purpose is to get familiar with. If you don't have the correct answers, don't feel frustrated because it will come according to the time. And I know that you are going to pass that test, but you need to practice. So just try to do your best and follow the story of your dream. Let's see. Accept the invitation. Number 2. View.